We were the most famous 50-50 couple in our friend group. From our first dinner to the down payment on our house, every single cent was accounted for. Anna said it was the highest form of respect between adults, and I believed her. The day we got our marriage license, there were no limos or lavish gifts, just 2 independent credit cards and a life agreement we co-signed. I thought our marriage would be like our ledger, always clear, equal, and free of conflict. But I forgot that the human heart isn't a balance sheet. You can't Venmo warmth and affection. I met Anna on a project at work. She was the new UI/UX designer, rational and independent. I was the senior engineer leading the team, pragmatic and meticulous. We clicked instantly. After a few meetings, we naturally started dating. On every date, I'd pay the bill, but she would always send me a request on Venmo for her exact share, down to the cent. At first, I tried to refuse, saying a guy should cover the costs, but she was adamant, and I couldn't argue with her. I thank my lucky stars for bringing Anna into my life. She wasn't just beautiful and brilliant at her job. Her values were perfectly aligned with mine. Of course, I wasn't a bad catch either. I didn't smoke, drink, or party. I had a condo, a car, and kept myself in good shape. Anna was lucky to find me, too. My buddies were green with envy, especially the married ones. Their wives turned life into a constant drama, where the smallest things could spark a 3-day fight. One day, it was a thoughtless anniversary gift. The next, it was a husband working late instead of going out to dinner. It was always the man who paid, as if it were some law of nature. They were only ever thinking about how to get money out of their husband's wallet. One of my friend's fiancés was demanding a $50,000 Tiffany ring, claiming it was what everyone does. It felt less like a tradition and more like extortion. Did she have any idea how long it takes a normal family to save that kind of money? It wasn't a marriage proposal. It was a hostage negotiation. Compared to them, Anna was an angel on earth. From the very beginning, she made it clear she wanted a modern 50-50 marriage. No engagement ring, no dowry. After the wedding, the mortgage and car payments would be split down the middle. We'd each be responsible for our own parents. All living expenses would go through a joint account, tracked meticulously. In this materialistic world, I had finally found an independent woman who was on my wavelength. I swore I would make her my wife. The day we got married, we skipped all the flashy ceremonies. We went straight to City Hall and then signed the detailed life agreement we had drafted together. The document covered everything from utilities to the formula for our future children, with every item clearly defined. That evening, I proudly announced our marriage in my group chat with the guys and sent them a picture of the agreement. As expected, the chat blew up. One friend, who was currently fighting with his wife about buying a new Chanel bag, just sent a series of periods. "Noah, are you for real? I'd eat my hat if my wife agreed to this." I typed back, "You're thinking too small. This is progressive, you get it? When the money is clear, the relationship can be pure." Watching them bicker over rings, allowances, and who pays for what felt so archaic, I pitied them. They didn't understand that the root of most marital problems is money. And Anna and I, with our flawless logic, have found the ultimate solution to avoid all of it. Married life was exactly as I had envisioned, like a precision machine, running clearly, efficiently, and without a single error. Every expense in our joint account was logged and categorized. It felt fantastic. Last week, a project I led won a major industry award, and the company gave me a hefty bonus. The moment the money hit my account, I was so ecstatic I wanted to do a backflip in the office. Naturally, the first person I wanted to share this joy with was Anna. On my way home, for the first time ever, I skipped the grocery store and booked a table at a high-end restaurant. At the dinner table, I grandly announced to Anna, "This week's dinners are all on me. A celebration. You can take a break." Anna looked at me with a hint of surprise, but nodded. That week, we explored every well-reviewed restaurant in the neighborhood, from omake sushi to a French steakhouse. I reveled in the feeling of splurging, and I enjoyed her silent acceptance of my generosity. I even thought that me occasionally breaking our absolute equality was a way to assert my role and strength in the relationship. On the weekend, I was lounging on the sofa, playing video games when Anna emerged from her home office. She handed me a piece of paper. I thought it was some weekend plan, but when I took it, I froze. It was an Excel spreadsheet printed on A4 paper with the title, Weekly Dinner Expense Report. From Monday's sushi to Friday's filet mignon, every single expense was clearly listed, then divided by 2. At the bottom was a total, calculated to 2 decimal places. The paper felt hot in my hands. I didn't know what to say. Seeing my lack of reaction, Anna pushed her glasses up her nose, her tone as neutral as if she were presenting a project update. This week's dinners totaled $2,588. After accounting for a few things I didn't eat, my share comes to $1,175.50. I've already transferred it to the joint account. You should double-check it. My mind went blank. The joy of the bonus, the pride of treating her, all of it was shattered by this cold, hard bill. I looked up at her, my face a mask of disbelief. She seemed to read my mind, her expression unwavering. Even the closest of friends settle their accounts, she said calmly. We're husband and wife. We have to be even clearer. In that moment, it felt like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over my head, chilling me to the bone. The warm, celebratory fire inside me was extinguished with a sudden hiss. The condo we lived in was bought with a joint mortgage, and our families had each paid for half of the down payment. A few days ago, my mom called from her home in Eastern Washington. She said the apples from their orchard were ripe, and she was sending us a box, along with some of her homemade smoked salmon. I was thrilled. I happily told her to send a big box, explaining that the stuff from the supermarkets in the city just didn't taste the same. I told Ann about it, and she smiled, saying how wonderful it was that my mom was so talented. That weekend, a huge box of goodies arrived. I was excitedly unpacking it, arranging the crisp apples in a bowl and putting the salmon in the fridge when my phone buzzed. It was a notification from Zelle. I opened it and saw a $200 transfer from Anna. Below it was a note, for the care package. I froze, then walked into the room with my phone. She was wearing noise-canceling headphones, completely focused on a design on her computer screen. I tapped her on the shoulder. She took off her headphones. I held the phone up for her to see, a half-amused, half-frustrated look on my face. What is this? She glanced at the screen, her expression unchanged, her tone as flat, as if she were commenting on the weather. I just checked on Instacart. Organic apples and artisanal smoked salmon of that quality would cost around $400. We split it 50-50. It's fair. I was speechless. A lump formed in my throat, sour and heavy. That was salmon my mom had painstakingly cured and smoked for days, a token of her love for her son. How did it become a commodity to be priced on a grocery app? This wasn't about the money. I opened my mouth, wanted to argue, but seeing her calm, by-the-book expression, I swallowed my words. She was right. According to our life agreement, once these items entered our home, they became shared household goods. It seemed only logical for her to pay for half. I didn't argue further. I just quietly accepted the payment. But in that moment, something felt deeply wrong. My parents' heartfelt love had been neatly partitioned by a few digits, transformed into a cold, commercial transaction. As I looked at the beautiful fillet of salmon in the fridge, I suddenly felt it wasn't quite as appetizing anymore. For chores, Anna and I had a system we were proud of, an advanced system. We didn't do something as crude as taking turns. Instead, we broke down all household tasks into individual piece rate jobs, logged in a shared Google Sheet. Mopping, washing dishes, taking out the trash, each task had a price tag. We based the rates on the going rate for a cleaning service, $50 an hour. More work meant more pay. At the end of the month, we'd settle up. Whoever logged fewer hours would transfer the difference to the other. Initially, I was thrilled with this. It was a genius design, completely eliminating the who does more argument that caused so many fights between couples. See, as long as the rules are clear, any problem can be solved. That was until last Wednesday. An urgent bug came up in the project, and I was stuck at the office with a few colleagues, frantically debugging until almost midnight. I dragged my exhausted body home, wanting nothing more than to collapse into bed. I tossed my dirty clothes into the washing machine, thinking I'd deal with them in the morning. When I woke up the next day, I found my clothes hanging on the drying rack in the laundry room. The hamper was empty. A wave of warmth washed over me. I thought it was sweet of Anna, knowing how exhausted I was. That warm feeling lasted until Sunday. We had a routine of settling our weekly accounts on Sunday night, including the chores. I opened our shared Google Sheet to check the numbers, and then I saw it, a line item that glared at me. Wednesday evening, laundry service for Noah. Time, 0.25 hours. Labor fee, $12.50. I stared at that line for a full 30 seconds, thinking I was seeing things. I carried my laptop over to her. Anna, I said, pointing at the screen, what is this? She was looking at design portfolios and didn't even look up. It's exactly what it says, she said flatly. I washed your clothes from Wednesday night. Sorting, loading, and hanging them took 15 minutes. According to our agreed-upon hourly rate, that's $12.50. A surge of anger shot from my chest to my head. I was working late. I was at the office until midnight. You're charging me because you helped me with one load of laundry. She finally looked up, her eyes calm, almost confused. Your work is your business. The clothes are yours. I completed a chore that was your responsibility, so I charged the corresponding labor fee. It's written in black and white in our agreement. It has nothing to do with who was working late or who was tired. This is to ensure absolute fairness, isn't it? I looked at her perfectly reasonable face, opened my mouth, but couldn't say a word. In that instant, for the very first time, I felt a profound, bone-deep sense of absurdity. I felt like I hadn't come home, but had instead walked into a precision-run factory, and my wife was the eternally calm, ruthlessly efficient supervisor, enforcing the rules without exception. Anna was pregnant. The news was like a stone dropped into a still lake, sending the first real ripples through the clockwork precision of our lives. I was overjoyed, feeling that dizzying mix of excitement and responsibility of impending fatherhood for the first time. To welcome this new life, we quickly activated the parenting chapter of our life agreement. We opened a joint investment account for a parenting fund, agreeing that starting that month, we would each deposit $3,000 into it for all future child-related expenses. Seeing that first $6,000 in the account, I felt incredibly secure. See, even something as monumental as having a child could be planned for in such a clear, rational way. What couldn't we handle? As a future father, I began spending my nights researching all things baby-related. When I saw a natural wood crib on a Scandinavian brand's website, I was instantly smitten. The clean lines, the eco-friendly materials, the multifunctional design that claimed it could be used until the age of 5. I could already picture my child sleeping peacefully in it. I excitedly sent the link to Anna. Honey, look at this crib. It's perfect. Let's get it. Only the best for our kid. A moment later, Anna's reply popped up. It wasn't a link, but a screenshot. It was a picture of our parenting fund account with the $6,000 balance circled in red. Then came her message. This crib costs $5,999. It exceeds our single item purchase limit for the month. And it's a non-essential. I stared at my phone, stunned. I immediately called her, my voice a bit frantic. What do you mean, non-essential? Where's the baby supposed to sleep? Besides, if we don't have enough now, we could buy it next month, or I can cover it for now. This is for my own child. On the other end of the line, Anna's voice was as calm as ever, like she was chairing a project review. I've done the research. A crib is a durable good. Our agreement stipulates that any durable good over $2,000 requires mutual approval. Secondly, I'm not denying the necessity of a crib. I'm denying the necessity of this high-price crib. The principle of our fund is to seek the highest cost-effectiveness, not the highest price. I've already shortlisted several domestic brands with all the necessary safety certifications, priced around $1,500, with similar functionality. That is the more rational choice. That's my son. I want to spend my money on him. I practically shouted, feeling as if my fatherly love was being audited like an unreasonable expense. It was outrageous. We were about to be parents, and we wanted the best for our child. Wasn't that the most natural thing in the world? The line was silent for a few seconds, then her steady, emotionless voice came through. Noah, we are a 50-50 couple, and we have a parenting fund agreement. Impulse buys and emotional premiums are risks the agreement is explicitly designed to avoid. I held the phone, unable to say another word, a sense of powerlessness rising from my feet and engulfing all the joy of becoming a father. Anna seemed to sense my silence and added, as if offering an olive branch, I've emailed you the alternative options. Take a look and let's make a decision soon. I quietly hung up the phone and never looked at that beautiful crib again. I could only let out a long, helpless sigh. In this house, it turned out that even a father's desire to express his love required budget approval. Our son was born. I named him Leo. I took a month of paternity leave, fumbling my way through learning how to change diapers, feed him, and burp him. Life was chaotic, but holding that soft, tiny person in my arms filled me with a satisfaction I had never known. After Anna's maternity leave ended, we quickly faced our first challenge. One late autumn night, Leo suddenly developed a high fever. His little face was flushed, his breathing was shallow, and his cries were weak. Anna and I rushed him to the hospital. After a frantic few hours, his fever started to come down, but the doctor said he needed to be admitted for observation. There were no extra beds in the room. I had Anna rest on the single chair while I paced the cold hallway, holding our son. I didn't sleep a wink all night. Looking at the fragile little person in my arms, my heart ached as if it were being pricked by needles. I would have done anything to make him better. In that moment, work code, none of it mattered. When morning came, Anna woke up. She looked at my bloodshot eyes, and a rare flicker of sympathy crossed her face. You go home and sleep. I'll watch him. I shook my head. You have a big meeting this afternoon. I'll take the day off. My hourly rate was higher than hers. According to our agreement, she should have been the one to take leave to minimize the financial impact. But in that moment, I forgot about agreements, forgot about opportunity costs. I only knew that I was his father, and this was my responsibility. Seeing my determination, Anna's lips moved, but in the end, she said nothing. After that illness, Leo's health was always a bit fragile, and the center of my life shifted completely from work to family. I started researching nutritional recipes, constantly trying new things for his meals. I taught myself pediatric massage to help soothe him when he was uncomfortable. Gradually, I became the one who was always on call. A call from the preschool about him fighting with another kid, and I'd have to drop my code and rush over. If he had a fever at night, I'd be yawning through my meetings the next day, completely unable to focus. One time, I was patiently helping him with his first ever write a story about a picture homework. What's in the picture? I coaxed. A ball. And what else? A little boy. What's the little boy doing? Playing with the ball. Great. Now can you write those sentences down? 10 minutes later, I looked at the crooked, misspelled words in his notebook, and my blood pressure shot up. I patiently taught him again and again, but he just kept whining that he couldn't do it. In that moment, the stress from my boss's criticism at work that day, the exhaustion from sleepless nights caring for him, it all came crashing down. I, a man in my 30s, was on the verge of tears, frustrated by my own son's homework. I took a deep breath, telling myself to be calm. This was my son. I ruffled his hair and softened my voice. It's okay, Leo. We'll take it slow. Daddy, we'll figure it out with you. When Anna came home from working late, she saw the two of us, heads together under the desk lamp, battling the homework. She stood at the doorway, a complex expression in her eyes. I knew my performance at work had plummeted. My numbers were terrible. But looking at my son's innocent, sleeping face beside me, I felt it was all worth it. I was even starting to get used to this life, used to putting my family first. I thought Anna would understand the sacrifices I was making. But I never expected the tech industry's downturn and my layoff notice to arrive so quickly. Ever since I became the primary caregiver for our son, my performance at work had nosedived. A call from his preschool about a squabble with a classmate meant I had to drop my coding and rush over. A fever at night meant I was a zombie at work the next day, unable to concentrate. During project reviews, when my manager asked about my bug fix progress, my mind was wandering to what I should make for Leo's dinner. The decline in my performance was inevitable. The one-star programmer had become the team's weakest link. Finally, in another round of organizational optimization, my name was on the layoff list. I was officially unemployed. Holding my severance package, I returned home feeling like my world had collapsed. A man in his 30s, jobless, with a mortgage, now a freeloader in his own home. The shame and helplessness were crushing me. When Anna got home, I handed her the layoff notice. I had imagined she would be shocked, angry, maybe even start a huge fight. But she did none of those things. She just calmly read the letter. Okay, I understand. That night, she didn't go to her study to work late, as usual. Instead, she sat across from me and initiated a family meeting. Noah, the situation has changed. I am now the sole income provider for this family. She began, her tone like she was leading a business negotiation. Therefore, some of our existing agreements need a major revision. I looked up at her and I felt like a complete failure, with no energy to argue. Considering you currently have no income and cannot contribute to household expenses or the mortgage, I propose that I will be responsible for all family expenditures. A flicker of hope stirred in me. Was she finally going to show some warmth? But her next words completely shattered my illusion. In exchange, you will need to assume all domestic labor responsibilities and become a full-time, stay-at-home husband. She pulled a document from her briefcase and pushed it across the table to me. It was a printed contract titled Domestic Labor Agreement. I picked up the thin, yet incredibly heavy, stack of papers, my fingers trembling. The contract detailed my job responsibilities, daily meals, housekeeping, child's education, daily shopping. Every task was listed with meticulous clarity, complete with KPI standards, such as floor cleanliness must be free of visible hair, and child's daily outdoor activity must be no less than 1 hour. I stared at the contract, speechless. Wait, I finally managed, looking up sharply. I'm your husband, not your hired help. Anna looked at me, her eyes devoid of any emotion. From an economic perspective, when one party completely loses their ability to contribute financially, freeing the other party from all domestic labor to maximize their external value creation is the only way to maximize the benefit for the family as an economic unit. This contract isn't meant to insult you. It's redefining your value to the family. You are no longer a financial contributor, but a labor provider. It's perfectly fair. I was once again silenced by her twisted logic. I felt like I hadn't just lost my job. I had been forcibly reassigned. Resentment boiled inside me. But did I have a choice? I had no income, no leverage, not even the grounds to object. In this cold corporate restructuring of our family, led by her, I had been stripped of my identity as a husband and turned into a full-time homemaker who had to sign a contract and be evaluated by KPIs. In the end, I signed the domestic labor agreement. From that day on, I officially became a stay-at-home dad. My life became a spinning top, revolving around my son and 3 meals a day. Grocery shopping, cooking, laundry, mopping, dropping Leo off at school, picking him up. I was like a wind-up robot, repeating these mundane tasks day after day. Anna became the absolute core of the family, the sole economic pillar. She kept her promise, covering all household expenses, while I completely lost any personal income. To facilitate my daily shopping and paying for Leo's preschool fees, she would transfer exactly $3,000 into my account on the first of every month. She didn't call it living expenses. She called it a household stipend, as if I weren't the man of the house, but a project manager in her company who needed a budget. The term household stipend was a thorn that dug deep into my soul. What was even more humiliating was her requirement that I download an expense tracking app on my phone. Every single purchase, even a bottle of soy sauce from the corner store, had to be logged immediately with a photo of the receipt uploaded as proof. She said it was to help her conduct a family financial audit, to ensure every penny was spent wisely and to avoid unnecessary waste. One time, after dropping Leo off at school, I passed a convenience store and, on a whim, bought a pack of cigarettes. It was the first time I'd smoked since losing my job. I was just too stressed. That evening, when Anna came home, the first thing she did was open her laptop and pull up our synced expense log. She pointed to a $15 charge on the screen and looked up at me, her eyes as cold as ice. "What is this?" I looked down, my voice barely a whisper. "The addendum to our domestic labor agreement clearly states," she began, her tone flat, like she was reading a legal statute, "that the household stipend is to be used only for daily household and child-related expenses. It does not cover any personal, non-essential consumption. Cigarettes are a personal, non-essential expense. This is a breach of the agreement. This $15 will be deducted from next month's stipend. Furthermore, as a penalty for a first-time violation, your monthly performance review will be docked by $50. In that moment, I felt every last shred of my dignity being crushed under her heel. I was a grown man in my 30s, yet I didn't even have the freedom to spend $15 on a pack of cigarettes. Every cent I spent was scrutinized and judged by her, like a schoolboy turning in his homework. I had completely lost my financial independence, and, with it, the last bit of self-respect I had as a man in this house. I looked at her eternally calm, rational face, and, for the first time, felt a soul-crushing despair. After 2 years as a stay-at-home dad, I felt like I was wasting away. Trapped in a world of diapers, formula, and endless chores, I felt completely disconnected from society. Looking at the man in the mirror, with his sunken eyes and scruffy beard, I could hardly recognize the ambitious project manager I once was. I couldn't go on like this. I started secretly updating my resume and sending it out to job sites. I wanted to get back to the battlefield that was mine, to reclaim my value. However, reality hit me like a ton of bricks. "Mr. Miller, we see you have a 2-year gap in your employment history. Can you explain what you were doing during that time?" Every interviewer asked the same question. When I mumbled that I was at home taking care of my child, the polite but distant look on their faces was my death sentence. Dozens of applications sent, all met with silence. I finally realized that the tech industry changes at lightning speed. 2 years was enough to make me obsolete. I had to relearn to upgrade my skills. I found a well-regarded online coding bootcamp. The tuition was $20,000. It was my only hope of re-entering the workforce. That night, I gathered all the courage I had and brought it up with Anna. I didn't dare ask for the money directly. Instead, I carefully framed it as an investment in the family's future human capital. I presented her with a 3-page training and re-employment feasibility report, detailing the necessity of the training, the advantages of the curriculum, and my projected career prospects. Anna finished reading my report and pushed her glasses up, her face expressionless. "I've read your report," she said, tapping the table as if she were evaluating a venture capital pitch. "Logically, your desire to increase your personal value is a positive. However, the risk of this investment is too high." I stared at her in disbelief. "The outcome of the training is not quantifiable. You cannot guarantee that you will find a job with our expected income level after completion. Second, the time cost is significant. During the training period, who will cover your domestic labor responsibilities? If we hire outside help, how will that cost be calculated? In conclusion," she declared, "the ROI, or return on investment, on this venture is highly uncertain. According to our family's financial principles, I cannot approve this educational expense from the family's joint funds." I felt the blood rush to my head. "So, you're saying no?" "Not no," she said, shaking her head with a hint of magnanimity. "I'm just not approving the use of family funds. However, I will approve your use of your own personal assets to pay for it." She was referring to the severance package I received when I was laid off. Over the past 2 years, that money had been chipped away by medical bills and the occasional new shirt for myself. I had less than $30,000 left. It was the last of my savings, the last shred of my financial independence as a man. "That's not fair." I slammed the report on the table. "If I improve myself and earn more money, isn't that for the good of the family? You're cutting off my only way out." Anna looked at my emotional outburst, her expression unwavering, her logic cold and sharp. "Your personal development is your own affair. The family's financial system must avoid all uncertain risks. That is a principle we agreed upon long ago, is it not? I was speechless again. Yes, a principle was a principle. The perfectly rational, risk-averse family system I had helped create now defined me as the uncertain risk and was unceremoniously shutting me out. I had no choice but to accept her terms. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and swallowed my pride once more. I would use my last bit of savings to gamble on a slim future. After starting the boot camp, my life became even more stressful. During the day, I was a whirlwind of childcare and chores. At night, I had to force my exhausted brain to absorb complex programming concepts. I felt like a rubber band being stretched from both ends, about to snap. Then my friend Mark called. A few of our old college buddies were getting together, a rare occasion, and he insisted I had to be there. I agreed without a second thought. I desperately needed an escape, even for just a few hours, to break free from my role as a stay-at-home dad. That evening, I told Anna I was going out for a reunion and would be back late. She was reading a project report and just grunted in acknowledgement. I drank a lot that night. 2 years of pent-up frustration and depression came pouring out with the alcohol. I complained to my friends, telling them I wasn't living like a man, but like a kept nanny. They listened to my story, stunned, and could only clap me on the shoulder and sigh. I stumbled home late that night. The next morning, I woke up with a splitting headache. I picked up my phone and saw a message from Anna. It wasn't a "how are you feeling," but a screenshot of a bill. A charge for $238 was circled in red, with the note, "Personal entertainment and dining expense." It was for last night's dinner, which I had paid for with my own Venmo. Then came her text. According to Article 7.2 of the Domestic Labor Agreement, the household stipend is to be used only for family-related expenses. Last night's dinner, costing $238, is classified as a personal expense and is in violation of the agreement. This amount will be deducted, doubled as a penalty from your next month's stipend. My head was spinning. Before I could even process it, a second message came through. Additionally, given that your alcohol consumption last night directly resulted in your failure to wake up on time to prepare the child's breakfast this morning, severely impacting your parenting duties for the day, it constitutes a major dereliction of duty. As per the Performance Review Standards, Article 3.1, your entire quarterly performance bonus is hereby revoked. The performance bonus she mentioned was a clause in the contract stating that if I went a whole quarter without any mistakes, she would give me an extra $500. I held the phone, my whole body shaking. All I did was go out for a drink with friends, to vent a little. And to her, it was a transgression that needed to be audited, penalized, and docked for my performance review. Performance bonus. My God, who was I? Wasn't I her husband? Weren't we a married couple? In that instant, I understood completely. In this house, I was no longer a husband. I was just an employee, strictly managed and evaluated by KPIs. A domestic laborer on a meager stipend, who didn't even have the right to have a drink with friends without being punished. Anna's career, just as she had planned, was flourishing. She was promoted to director, which meant more networking events and later nights at the office. The large house often felt empty, with just me and my son. My days were a relentless battle against my son's mischief, the endless cycle of meals, and the chores that were never truly done. At night, when Anna came home smelling of wine, I was the one who had to deal with our son's crying and the early morning wake-up calls. Lately, I hadn't been feeling right. I suffered from insomnia night after night, a heavy weight pressing on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I would find myself crying uncontrollably while washing the dishes. I had no appetite and lost a lot of weight. I thought I was just exhausted, that something was physically wrong. Then one day, while waiting for my son to finish his art class, I saw a sign for a mental health clinic across the street. On impulse, I walked in. After a series of assessments and questions, the doctor looked at me with a gentle but serious expression and told me I had moderate depression. I sat on a chair in the hospital, holding the diagnosis, the world spinning around me. Me, a grown man with depression. A condition I had once dismissed as people being overly dramatic had actually happened to me. That night, I placed the diagnostic report in front of Anna. I thought it would at least elicit a shred of concern or guilt from her. She read the report, was silent for a moment, then looked up at me. There was no sympathy in her eyes, only her usual calm, analytical gaze. Does it require treatment? The doctor recommended weekly therapy sessions and medication, I said, my voice hoarse. Okay, she nodded, then added, the treatment costs will come from your personal account. I shot my head up, unable to believe what I was hearing. Seeing my shocked expression, she continued with her impeccable logic. According to our agreement, the family jointly covers medical expenses for physiological illnesses. Depression falls under the category of emotional and cognitive issues. Your emotions are your personal problem, stemming from your inability to self-regulate. This is not a shared family risk, but your personal risk. Therefore, the resulting expenses should be borne by you. I closed my eyes, feeling the last ounce of strength drain from my body. I was sick. My sickness was because of this family, because of this suffocating marriage. And now, she was telling me it was my personal problem. Even my pain was being neatly delineated and assigned to me by her agreements and rules. I looked at her, my voice trembling as I asked, in your eyes, what exactly is our problem? Anna looked at me, but didn't answer. She simply stood up, straightened her expensive blazer, and said calmly, I have an early flight for a business trip tomorrow. Please take good care of our son. I watched her walk away, completely and utterly hopeless. There was no us in this house anymore. I sat in the living room all night, holding the depression diagnosis. I had had enough. I could no longer endure this life, suffocated by rules and KPIs. I didn't want to be a stay-at-home husband anymore. Didn't want to be at the mercy of her household stipend. I just want to be a normal husband, a man of flesh and blood. The next day, when Anna returned from her trip, I stood in front of her, and for the first time, my voice was firm and unwavering. We need to talk. I gathered up our life agreement and the subsequent domestic labor contract and slammed them on the coffee table. Tear these up, I said, my eyes red, pointing at the pile of paper. Starting today, all these agreements are void. We're going to live like a normal family. You earn the money, I'll take care of the home. We are a team. Let's stop counting every single penny. I thought my desperate outburst would at least move her, but it didn't. She just glanced calmly at the documents on the table, then looked up at me, her eyes like she was looking at a child throwing a tantrum. Noah, I refuse. Her voice was quiet, but each word was a cold hammer blow to my heart. Why? I screamed. Because this system is working very well, she explained with perfect clarity. I can focus on my career without any worries. My career is advancing, our total household income is growing, and our son's quality of life is secure. From a results-oriented perspective, our model is a success. A success. I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. What about me? I have depression because of you. I have to pay for my own medical bills. Is that part of your so-called success? That is your problem, she said, looking at me without a trace of guilt. It's your failure to adjust your mindset. Your inability to adapt to the new division of family roles is your personal failure, not a failure of the rules. You agreed to this. Every word was like a sentence being handed down. When you lost your job, you agreed to sign the domestic labor agreement. When my hourly rate became higher than yours, you agreed to the principle of opportunity cost. You enjoyed the benefits of the rules, and now that you can't handle the responsibilities that come with them, you want to unilaterally tear them up. She stood up, picked up the crumpled agreements from the table, and smoothed them out one by one. Noah, you are not trying to communicate. You're trying to breach the contract. The words breach of contract were like a sharp knife, piercing through all my defenses. I collapsed onto the sofa, looking at her eternally calm, eternally correct face, feeling completely drained. I didn't know what to do. I was lost and in so much pain. I wanted to destroy this damned agreement. I wanted a normal family life, but she used the very rules we created together to brand me as a defaulter. The cage I had built for myself, it turned out, didn't even have a door. I was trapped. Those two words, breach of contract, were the final verdict that completely broke me. I looked at this familiar stranger, This woman I once thought was my soulmate, and felt nothing but endless sorrow and despair. This marriage had become a cold, empty shell, a sophisticated prison built from countless rules and clauses. I couldn't stay here any longer. Not for one more day. "Let's get a divorce," I said. My voice was soft, but it took all the strength I had. Anna, who was organizing the documents, paused for a second. She looked up at me, her eyes showing no surprise, no desire to reconcile, not even a flicker of emotion. She just nodded and replied calmly, "Okay," as if I had just asked what we should have for dinner. The next day, while I was still struggling with a hangover and despair, Anna had already placed a document in front of me. It was a divorce agreement she had drafted overnight. I picked it up and felt a chill run through me after reading just the first page. Attached to the agreement was a thick marital asset division plan. In the plan, the ownership of every single asset was clearly defined. We had split the down payment on the house, so she proposed selling it and dividing the proceeds according to our initial contributions. The car was the same, but the most crucial part was the appreciation of assets during the marriage. In the past few years, Anna's career had soared. Her salary, bonuses, and investment returns amounted to a considerable sum. Meanwhile, since becoming a stay-at-home dad, I hadn't earned a single cent. The conclusion at the end of the plan was written in bold. Based on the signed 50-50 life agreement and the domestic labor agreement, the husband, Noah Miller, has made no direct financial contributions in the past several years. His domestic labor has been compensated in the form of a household stipend. Therefore, in the division of the appreciated value of marital assets, the husband is considered a non-contributing party and is not entitled to any share. I held the agreement, my hands shaking like leaves in an autumn wind. A non-contributing party. My years of sacrifice for the family, giving up my career, taking care of our child, the endless days and nights of work, my depression, all of it in her cold calculation was canceled out by that pathetic stipend. All that was left were those four cold, hard words, non-contributing party. I had given everything for this family, and in the end, I was to be left with nothing. I looked at Anna, the woman I once loved, the mother of my child. Her face still wore that familiar, always correct, unassailable calmness. As if that wasn't enough, she pulled out our shared expense ledger and pushed it in front of me. All the accounts are here. Every transaction is clear and verifiable. This plan is based entirely on the rules we both agreed to. It is absolutely fair. Fair. I laughed, tears streaming down my face. Yes, so fair. As fair as a surgeon's scalpel, cutting me out of this family, flesh and bone, leaving nothing behind. I refused to accept it. I took the divorce agreement Anna gave me and, with the last of my savings, hired a lawyer. I piled all our agreements, contracts, and ledgers on his desk. Like a drowning man clinging to a piece of driftwood, I placed all my hope in him. With red eyes, I poured out years of grievances and injustices. I thought the law would give me justice. The lawyer spent an entire afternoon carefully reviewing all the materials. The longer he read, the more his brow furrowed. Finally, he took off his glasses, rubbed the bridge of his nose, and looked at me with an expression of almost pity. "Mr. Miller," he sighed, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "From a legal standpoint, your situation is not promising." My heart sank to the bottom of my stomach. This 50-50 life agreement, while its terms may seem harsh, is clear and defines rights and responsibilities. It represents the true intentions of both parties. You willingly sign away your right to a share of your wife's income during the marriage. That is legally binding. More importantly, the lawyer pointed to the document I hated most. This domestic labor agreement defines you as a provider of domestic labor and quantifies the value of your labor with a household stipend. In the eyes of the law, this could easily be interpreted as you having already received due compensation for your contributions to the family. In other words, your years of service have been paid in full. I felt like my body was being torn in half. Pain everywhere. That was the only thing I felt after hearing those words. "What about our son?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Custody? I'm his father. I raised him." The lawyer's expression grew even graver. That is precisely the most difficult part. According to these agreements, you have had no independent income for a long time, and your finances are entirely dependent on the stipend paid by your wife. In court, you would be considered a dependent. Ms. Vance, on the other hand, has a successful career, a stable income, and can provide a far better material and educational environment for the child than you can. When it comes to a custody battle, the judge's decision will almost certainly favor her. Shay made my head spin. My years of sacrifice, instead of being an advantage in a custody fight, had become proof of my inability to provide.